Hey, what's up, guys? It's Christian. Welcome to the Expectation Podcast. I'm here with John Lim, who is the owner, founder of Asian Plus and a bunch of other card games such as Tragos and Stay the Fuck Inside is another one. And he's also been featured on Forbes. So a lot of cool stuff that he's been doing and a lot of fun stuff that he's bringing to the table. And so glad to be able to have him on.
Thanks for having me. It's honestly anytime someone asks me for my thoughts or asks me to be on anything, I'm like, that's so cool. So thank you.
For sure, man. So I always like to start with this. Kind of give us like your chapter one of who John Lim is. Go through like your childhood, how you were as a kid. Maybe you're doing some stuff like a little bit of hustling on the side. That's why you got into business. Give us chapter one of your book.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had two older sisters. They were, the classic go-getters. They became doctors. One's a medical doctor. The other one's a pharmacist. So growing up, I always kind of had these very strong examples of what I should be.
Okay.
I guess growing up, never really or quite exactly like them. I think that kind of happens when you're the younger sibling.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like a little bit more, I love being a little bit more creative and pursued a lot of those hobbies a lot. And so I never really was, your stereotypical quote unquote, goody two shoes Asian. Definitely got into my fair share of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to paint the picture and make it simple, I was not like the most ideal, picture perfect.
Gotcha. Yeah, I understand. I can relate. I'm same. Like didn't do the well in school and stuff like that. It was just kind of like the opposite of what the stereotypical type of Asian kid was. So I understand for sure. Talk a little bit about how so you went through high school. Where'd you kind of grow up?
Sorry, could you say that again?
What area did you grow up in?
Yeah, so I grew up in Howard County, Maryland. So I lived in Ellicott City, and then I went to school in Baltimore County.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like to talk a little bit more about, I guess, chapter one. I was, one of the few Asian kids at my high school. I think there was maybe three other Asian kids in my entire grade.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot different from a lot of other Asian Americans. Like usually, Asian Americans especially tend to live together and, join the same communities, but that definitely wasn't my experience.
Yep. Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I can relate there again. I kind of grew up in the suburban area, so there wasn't that many Asian kids. There's probably like 10 to 15. It's a little bit more than you, but not too much,
Yeah, not a lot.
Cool. What did your parents kind of have your sisters were kind of, like you said, little hustlers, and they did some stuff that were kind of different than stuff that you were really kind of interested in. Did your parents have like expectations for you to kind of follow that path? How was that like?
Yeah, no, definitely. As I was graduating college, a lot of the conversation was around, so like what type of graduate school do you want to go to? It wasn't even like what type of job do you want to do? It's like what type of graduate school are you going to, and what sort of professional degree do you want? Like, are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be a doctor? Like, what is it that because for my mom, graduate school equals success.
Yep.
So, that was a lot of their expectation, and honestly, we butt heads a lot about it. Talking to my mom later, like, years later about how she felt about me at that time, she said that she had just given up. She was like, you know what, he's not going to be as successful as my two daughters. And that's,
sure.
That's what she was setting herself up for.
Yeah. I think that's what happened to a lot of people in our shoes at the very beginning, just because it's hard to see it for them at the very beginning, but and then talking about, so you leave college, you graduate college, and then what'd you do after that?
Yeah. So after leaving college, I didn't have any sort of meaningful job offers from literally anywhere. I was kind of always pretty unfocused. I did like a lot of extracurriculars and stuff like that. And so, yeah, no good internships while I was in school. And then afterwards, well, it took me a long time to learn that you actually need those good internships to get any sort of good job. So
sure.
That wasn't what was going to happen. So I applied to teach English in South Korea. In my mind, I kind of knew my mom had a little bit of a soft spot there because we're South Korean.
Yep.
And so it would be like a year for me to go take a year off, study for, LSATs. Cause at the time I was like, oh, I'm going to go to law school,
Yep.
and learn a little bit more about my culture, my language. And so my mom was like on board with that. She wanted me to, go and experience that. Cause I think we're all losing a little bit of our Asian identities over time.
For sure.
So, for her, that was a nice way for me to preserve, our cultural memory.
Yep.
So I did that for a year. In the meantime, also, was doing video production on the side. That's how I got my start.
Mm-hmm.
I'd make, promotional videos and Facebook ad videos for e-commerce companies. And so during the day, I would, teach English. And then at night, I would go home and work on those videos for people in the US.
Gotcha.
That was like one of the first times that I kind of felt like one of my creative hobbies, it kind of felt like it could be a career. And one of the first things that, like, the more effort I put into it, the more it grew.
Yep.
So during that year was like the year that I put a lot of focus into entrepreneurship and got a lot of, experience and returns from it.
Gotcha. So let's backtrack a little bit. So you went into teach. You want to go teach in South Korea, of course. Before that, and then you started doing some video work. Before that, did you have any like previous video work experience before that? Before taking on something like that, and how did you even get like jobs like that back in the U.S. when you were over there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the video editing experience, I think, was just being in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sort of. I mean, as I mentioned before, I was not really, a model kid, so I got grounded a lot.
Yep.
So my mom would take away my video game systems, and at that point, when I first started video editing, was because I had been grounded for an entire year,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of like hilarious to think about.
Yep.
But one of the few things that I was lucky to have was my mom did, fortunately get me an iMac for school.
Mm-hmm.
So on iMac, it comes with iMovie. So in the hours and hours of boredom, just from being stuck at home, I would edit fun videos, whether it's like stop motion or like funny little skits or whatever.
Yep.
I also grew up on YouTube, and at that time, the only place that you really saw people with Asian faces were on YouTube. Like Timothy De La Ghetto was the one I used to watch growing up
Yep.
all the time.
For
And
sure.
then also you had like um, Wong Fu Productions. Anyway, so
Yep.
YouTube and editing video and doing that type of thing was always something that I wanted to do. And so, I grew up starting in 8th grade doing it, and then just kept it as a hobby until college.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I like developed my skills, at least to the point to use the platform. Um, and that was enough to really convince businesses to let me edit video for them. I was like, oh, I could do this for you, be super cheap. I had a mentor tell me about the potential of Facebook ads. And so I just devoured it and tried to learn as much about it as I could, so that I could convey, even when I didn't have the experience, I could convey the potential value that Facebook
Yeah.
ads meant. And then at that point, it's just a matter of finding someone that is willing, or is like cheap. At the end of the day, like finding someone who's cheap and doesn't want to pay a lot for your labor, but is willing to take a shot on you because you are cheap,
Yep.
and you can, you at least somewhat know what
For sure.
what to do.
For sure.
That's how I started finding people to make videos for.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, from having some of those campaigns be successful, the best way to grow is word of mouth. If anyone ever gives you a good review or sends you to another business owner that they know, then it gets super easy to bring in their business. So
Yep.
I think focusing on good work is what helped out there.
Facts. Yep. I totally agree with that. And what year was that kind of when you were kind of, was this like 2000? Because you graduated 2016, right?
Yeah.
So was it
So
like 2017, later 2016 ish?
yeah. So 2016 through yeah. So my first video gig happened before I got hired in Korea.
Yep.
Um, I did that over the summer. Moved to Korea in the fall of 2016 after graduating, and then was in Korea from 2017 till the end of it.
Gotcha.
That's when I spent a lot of time. At that point, I learned a lot about like reaching out to clients through email and trying to approach it that way.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. Um, and in that Forbes article, you kind of talked about how it's important to be able to create conversations every day. And one of the examples you gave was that you should at least email someone once a day.
Yeah.
just to be able to create constant conversations. Talk a little bit about that and how you apply that to yourself, especially during a time when you're, off off in South Korea.
Yeah, so I always hated the idea that um, in order to make it, you have to hustle 24/7.
Yeah,
It's a very toxic mentality. It doesn't prioritize what I think is an entrepreneur's most important asset, which is, their energy, their enthusiasm for doing things. So if you burn yourself out, like, you're the engine that makes the whole business run. So if you're burnt out, the business ain't going anywhere.
facts. Yep,
Um, so when it came to, sending just an email a day, that's just such an easily done thing. You just
yep,
pick one person that you admire or one person that could, maybe even hire you, and you just do that once a day.
mm-hmm.
And if you do that for the whole year, what's that? That's 365 conversations. Well, maybe not 365. It depends on if they respond.
Yeah,
But maybe that's a good conversation a month. Maybe that's a good conversation a week. But you'll definitely be you'll get a lot more traction by doing something smart and achievable like that than to, like, I don't know, burn yourself out
for
super
sure.
quickly.
For sure. You also talked about, sometimes people may not even respond. What are some tips for people that may want to try this out? As far as from your experience that have been able to work, or emails that have been able to work, what type of emails? Let's say they
Yeah.
were looking for like a client or whatever that might be, or just getting a reply back. What type of emails kind of stuck out that did best for you?
Yeah. So the time that I found the most success was when I really focused on a specific type of business. And for me, that was sustainable businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my emails were geared towards that, talking
Yep.
about how, we are a cause-driven digital marketing agency. We want to just support companies that are doing good things for the world. And then we had, links to case studies of our results for similar types of clients.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily our case study was very good. So that helps a lot. If you're able to
Yeah,
drive results, like,
for
that's
sure.
first and foremost, most important.
For sure.
And then also just leading to some sort of call to action, make it as easy as possible for them to have a call with you. So I always hated, like, the back and forth of, like, okay, so when are you free next week? Oh, I'm not free
Yeah.
next week. I'm free 2 weeks from now, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. It's a huge waste of time. The entrepreneur doesn't even know you and doesn't even know if they want to be on the phone with you.
Yep.
So I always use, like, a call scheduling link, and made sure that I included that. I was like, oh, schedule the time and we can go through 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We can just get to know each other and see if there's any sort of possibility of working with each other.
Dope.
And then the next thing was, while I do promote, hey, let's send an email a day. Eventually what that evolved to was, let's send, 150 emails every Tuesday, and putting the systems in place to make that as easy as possible.
Yep.
So I guess this is one of the bigger tips that I don't think a lot of people take advantage of, but outsourcing labor overseas for a lot of the repeatable, button clicking tasks that setting up 150 emails is. Because really all you have to do is find one email template that works and have someone click and organize those emails every week.
Yeah.
So by the end of it, I didn't even have to lift a finger to send 600 emails a month to target clients.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Makes sense, man. Yeah, that's super smart. I think that's an area where a lot of people aren't looking. And like you said, for entrepreneurs, you can kind of get burnt out by trying to do all that stuff by yourself. So finding ways to work smarter, but also work hard at the same time is key. Um, cool. Well, so you do your year over South Korea. Then what happens next?
Yeah. So the next more like year and a half was kind of insane. I left Korea having 3 clients. Started to do this program called Remote Year, which
Mhm.
is a travel program. You go to a new country each month. You pay $2,000 a month for this program, and you just travel around the whole world while working remotely. So I would do all of my digital marketing work in the various countries back for clients in the US.
Yep.
I did that for about 16 months.
Mhm.
And through those 16 months, I was able to figure out a little bit more of the B2B strategy of acquiring clients and what it is like to run an agency and bring on more people to hire you.
Yep.
So I started off with 3, and then by the end of it was at around 15 clients.
Mhm.
So I did that for a while. and then moved to Austin, Texas. I was pretty much done with traveling. I mean, I did about as much as, someone could probably want to do. And so I was really looking for a home base to kind of focus more on business and work. And so I lived in Austin, Texas for a year then. And then about, I guess, a year and a half ago, I think it was December 2018 was when I got the idea for Asian Flush, and started putting together the work to get that launched.
Talk a little bit about that. I guess like what sparked that idea of Asian Flush?
Yeah, I think it was a few things. So one, digital marketing life. So I don't know if your listeners like want to do that or what they're, what they like to do, but
Yep.
it's really great, provides an awesome living. But if you're like me, you want to see like what you're made of at the end of the day.
Yep.
You want the accomplishments and accolades to go to you. So if you're in the digital marketing field, if you do a great job, the glory doesn't go to you. It
Yeah.
goes to the CEO
Exactly.
of the company that hired you.
Yep.
They didn't do anything. They just paid your check.
Yep.
And so I didn't really like that. I kind of wanted to see if I could do that too.
Yep.
And so I'm always just looking for like, what's the next challenge? What's the most, one of my life, I guess, philosophies is like, what's the most difficult thing I can do? Like, let me go try and do that before I die. So that's what starting my own business meant to me. And then, so I had that kind of sort of enthusiasm and motivation. And then I found Subtle Asian Traits, which is the Facebook group. I'm sure you're part of it.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
pretty much every online Asian is a part of Subtle Asian Traits now.
For sure. Yep.
And then lastly, I love playing card games, and especially like while traveling, that's something we always did was play various drinking games with each other on the road. And one game that I always hated and now is actually getting under, some scrutiny is Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
I just never really liked that game model. I never liked the idea of having to guess what other people think is funny.
Yeah.
And it just ends up leading to a lot of rounds where no one laughs and everyone kind of feels awkward, especially for like the socially anxious types, which I know there are more and more of every single day.
For sure.
Talk less. And so I wanted to solve that. I was like, how can we make a game that's fun for every single card? Seeing Subtle Asian Traits made me realize that humor online was shifting away from Cards Against Humanity type humor, which is like very absurd and like out there. It's just meant to make you laugh because it's so crazy.
Yep.
Shifting to memes nowadays, which are so specific and so relatable. It's more about identifying small, minute things we all have in common. And so that's kind of the, I guess, fusion. I mean, I was like, let me make a card game that's super intensely relatable. Asian culture happened to be something that I felt I could write. And so that's kind of, the convergence of, wanting to start a business, loving relatable memes, being Asian kind of just all came together.
Yeah.
Into that idea.
So it just kind of like it just kind of exemplified yourself and kind of what you're interested in. I think that's kind of the story for a lot of successful businesses is it kind of just exemplifies the person that's created it. So I can totally see that. Well, cool. And then so talk a little bit about, so you started that in 2018. How did you kind of gain traction with that? Obviously, you had your digital marketing background and working with a lot of different clients. I'm pretty sure that played into it. Talk a little bit about the growth, hacking the marketing behind that brand.
Yeah. So through my digital marketing experience and on the agency side, there are certain, and I'm sure you see this too, because I know you run a growth agency as well.
Yep.
When you get your hands on the top tier clients, the ads, they don't even need to be touched. They have such a good product. They solve a problem and people just see it. They know they need it. They buy it.
Correct.
And so Agent Flush followed a similar path. I didn't, at the time, I didn't think that it was really that needed. I just wanted to launch it for fun and it was something that I could do. But when it did take traction and when I launched the ads and when it started to sell like immediately, that's when and then like put more money into it and more revenue would come back. And that's kind of, it started to scale.
Yeah.
And so I wish there was like some sort of growth hacking thing to it, but I think it really speaks to creating a great product to begin with.
Yep.
And that, that is like the important part, is finding good products to work with or creating one that's great on your own.
So what about like the creativeness and the launch behind the brand? Was there something that you did to be able to help that launch be able to reach a certain amount of people? Maybe you just posted in the Subtle Asian Traits group and that thing kind of just helped out a ton. Talk a little bit about the launch and how you kind of grew it and scaled it.
Yeah. So Subtle Asian Traits, unfortunately, um, signed an exclusive contract. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
because I emailed them. I think it was like the same day that they were about to sign the contract with another game, another
Yep.
Asian game.
Gotcha.
And I tried to pitch them. I was like, yo, my game's better. You got to support my game. Like, I'll
Yep.
give you a better deal, whatever. Like, what is there that we can do so that you can at least reconsider
Yeah. Yeah.
what you're about to sign with this other game? I think there's a reason the other game is like, no one knows it.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
so
Yep.
at the end of the day, I feel vindicated. Even though we didn't sign the exclusive
Yep.
contract, we still came out on top. So the point is that I was not able to get with Subtle Asian Traits. And
Gotcha.
honestly, I was a little disappointed about that because I was like, I was like counting on that. I was like, oh, if we
Yep.
get them, we'll be so solid.
Yep.
So I did start to look in other places. I promoted with Asians Never Die.
Yeah.
I just emailed the guy, Ty Tran. He's awesome. I don't know if you ever had a conversation with
I
him.
have not. Maybe I will after this. I'll at least try to. But yeah.
Yeah, he's the meme king. He does, and he's such a genuine guy. He just had a kid too, which is
Really? Wow.
awesome dude.
Okay. Yep.
So I hit him up. We hopped on the phone. I told him about my vision for the game. He even helped me out with, giving us a, pretty affordable price for our first post.
Yeah.
That goes viral. The game in general, like, gets shared a ton. The engagement on it is like unlike what I've ever seen. People share it. It just had this sort of viral effect from being something that people wanted so much. And I think one of the other things that is helpful is that each card is like a meme in and of itself, because it's like an obscure relatable trait that all Asians have.
Yep.
And then we'd make, a Facebook ad carousel of it. So it'd be 5 cards that people could swipe through. And that almost even simulates you playing the game. So one of the things that I love about, well, not love about, but one of the things that I think contributes to good Facebook ads are a good concept of use. It's like showing how it's useful, showing how, how it can be done in your life. So in a sense, our ads were sort of mini demos, mini playthroughs, and it just happened to work out off of the.
That makes so much sense actually, because it just feels native, right? It just feels like it's supposed to kind of be, or it's just like everything else. So that makes 100% sense, man. Well, that's super dope. And so you kind of grew that brand, and you also created some other brands such as Tragos, and you probably just recently created it, Stay the Fucking Side, just because of sounds like because of the pandemic. I'm assuming.
Yeah. So we created. So I had a business partner in this, Carolina. She did all the branding for Asian Flush.
Gotcha.
And one of the things that I encouraged her to do was to create the Latino version of Asian Flush. We just we're just like, hey, why not give it a shot?
Yep.
And so she launched a couple months after Asian Flush did, and I still try to help advise her, but that's her company now for the most part.
Yep.
Stay the Fucking Side. Yeah, we launched directly in response to the pandemic.
Yep.
And that was, so I thought Asian Flush launch was crazy. The Stay the Fucking Side launch was by far the most impressive thing I've ever done on Facebook. We had, I think it was over 60,000 downloads in 6 weeks in 87 countries around the world, and we were able to raise $30,000 for COVID-19 relief. I felt really good just to be able to take my creative energy and put something positive out in the world and help a lot of people stay home. And I'm really proud of that company. Now it's kind of dying down. Like, there's less need, even though the pandemic is getting worse. People are not, it's not quite the zeitgeist anymore.
Yep.
But it was still a fun project.
Yeah, that's dope. I think that's super cool being able to create all these different brands through your cards, through cards and stuff like that. Super dope. And I think I saw did Asian Flush just get acquired?
Yeah, so Asian Flush got an investment from a firm here in Seattle called Strikes
Gotcha.
39. And prior to getting, the investment, I was doing the digital marketing agency and Asian Flush.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they kind of gave me the opportunity to just focus on games full time.
Yeah.
So now I'm there. We're starting a new company called Ugly, which Asian Flush is a part of. Stay the Fuck Inside is a part of.
Yep.
And we hope to launch games for people that are underrepresented, whether that's based on ethnicity or if it's based off your interest. We want to create games that haven't been seen before for people that have been typically underserved. So,
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Super cool, man. Yeah, I think that's gonna be dope. So are you guys looking at like I don't know if you can even share this yet, but like board games and all that type of stuff too?
yeah, so I mean, for now, we're going to stick to our current game model that we do well. That's
Yep.
just because we know it works.
Yep. For sure.
We'll try to launch a few more successful brands that are similar to Asian Flush, but maybe for larger demographics.
Yep.
Asian Flush will always be my baby, but
Yeah.
you I think through Asian Flush, well, one of the reasons I started off with just Asian Flush was because I wasn't confident that my content or my products could speak to a wider audience. I
Yep.
just didn't have that confidence in myself.
Yep.
But once Asian Flush took off, I kind of knew that, okay, well, I can speak to Asian people. And then Stay the Fuck Inside took off. And so now I'm like, okay, well, actually, I can capture the moment with my products, the products that I make can be global if I really want to and really put the effort into it.
Yep.
And so now that's the next challenge, right? Like, as I was saying before, I want to go and do the most difficult thing. So, hopefully through my work here, we can create the next Cards Against Humanity, the next Exploding Kittens.
Yep.
Maybe this generation's Monopoly. That would be insane.
Yeah.
So
That'd be amazing. I think you could do it, bro.
thank you.
uh I mean, earlier you kind of talked about like not burning yourself out too much. Talk a little bit about how you kind of just find inspiration every day to keep creating, to keep, just playing the game of business. Like what keeps you afloat every day?
I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't have swings, because I do burn out, and there will be weeks where I don't want to do a thing. I just lay on the couch. Man, I'm so tired. I don't want to cook. I don't want to clean.
Yep.
The burnout is definitely a very real thing. One other thing that's always a refresher is going back to see family,
For sure.
and
I agree.
kind of seeing their reactions to how I've grown and what I've done,
Mm-hmm.
and then just seeing the way that they view me.
Yep.
And they're so proud, and it makes me feel bad for having those down weeks. I'm like, man, I'm really not doing what I need to. So it kind of is like gives me a refresh, a restart. Like, all right, I get back to it. I got to get back on it. That's one part, is seeing family definitely helps. And so that was in LA this weekend for my cousin's wedding, and yeah, seeing them was so nice. And how, they were like, oh my God, like you've done so much, and we love you. We're so proud of you. And I don't want to let my family down. So that's part of what gets me going again. And then I try to make sure that I've got a good work-life balance, got a good social life. I mean, I did create a drinking game after all. So I do like to socialize when I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then outside of that, sleeping well. I got to make sure I sleep well.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Sleep is important. Family time is important. So a lot of the small things that we don't think is important are actually like super important.
Yeah.
To make sure that you take care of yourself. So I agree with all that. Um, well, yeah, I
Oh, and
mean,
one last thing.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
And it's to push back against the 24/7 hustle culture, and trying to promote something that's a little bit more holistic, and like, listen, it's not your job to be productive 100% of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. Um, so you talked a little bit about like going back to your family and how they're so proud of you nowadays. How has this shift been? I mean, because you were talking a little bit about earlier, like your your mom wasn't the most fond of like kind of what you're doing at the beginning of things, and we kind of said like, that's kind of how they're at the beginning of things to now. Like how what kind of shift have you seen there?
It's been an adjustment. Yeah, my mom, didn't believe in me previously. Honestly, when I first brought up that I was going to launch the game, she was like, "That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard." Rightfully so. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
social media, what she doesn't understand. It's drinking, what she doesn't understand.
card game.
Yeah, she didn't
Yeah,
understand any of that.
yeah.
But she's now an employee of Asian Flush.
Wow.
So
Okay.
she does all the fulfillment. Um, we get it manufactured. It goes
Yep.
to his house, and then she sends it to everybody.
Nice.
Crazy. But then she's
Okay.
allowed to stay home to help take care of my sister's kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, part of that's just growing up too. Like, I've always been the youngest one by a significant margin. So my other sisters, my two sisters, are 7 and 10 years older than me. So I've always just been the youngest kid. And so it's been I was always like, the little bro. It's like I had 3 moms. But now I'm 25 and we're all adults. So we're all starting to have opinions, and it kind of feels like a little more of an even playing field. So
Yep.
part of the transition has been, okay, we're just growing up, but also, now they realize, I'm serious. Like, I can do this on my own, and they
Yep.
don't have any doubts. It's nice to see them believe in me for sure.
Dope, dope. That's so awesome, man. I think that's huge to be able to go from what it was before to now. I think that's awesome. I think that that's what we all want, for everybody that's kind of trying to jump into the game. So cool. What's the landscape looking like for you and your ventures on 2020? I know 2020 has halted a lot of
Yeah.
businesses and their launches or their new whatever it might be. How's 2020 affecting you, and how are you kind of holding up with everything going on?
Yeah. So, um, pandemic has made things interesting. Um, the murder of George Floyd has made things interesting as a cultural game. And um, the combination of both the economic pressure and the social pressure to do the right thing, both in guiding our company towards fiscal success moving forward, and making sure that the pandemic isn't something that is spells death for my company,
Yep.
while also thinking about what our role is as a cultural game in influencing people, um, has been another thing that's come about recently. So I don't know. I never really, even after Asian Flush's success, never really thought about it as something that could really influence people like that, or that I would be someone that is someone of influence.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm realizing every day that that's not true, and that everything we do, even if it's small, does move the needle even a bit. So we're trying to focus on those two things. Um, we're trying to grow our team. So luckily, due to the resources of an investment, we're able to expand and try to bring on more talent.
Yep.
We're working on that, and then also developing as many games as possible. So we're in this phase where we're trying to launch games every 2 weeks,
Really? Wow.
in hopes that we can find some mainstays. Obviously all of them aren't going to be hits,
Yep.
but hopefully we can find a few solid brands for the holidays, because as you know, Q4 is like 75% of sales for
Mm-hmm.
consumer packaged goods.
For
So
sure. For
we can
sure.
have 4 or 5 solid brands, and hopefully we can have a really solid holiday season.
Yeah. Yeah. Super dope, man. Um. Well, cool. Talk a little bit about, I guess, as we kind of get to the end of things here, what's kind of the best, this is a question I like to ask a lot. What's the best and worst thing about being your own boss or an entrepreneur?
Best thing is being time rich. Um, Even if you're not making a lot of money, if you're your own boss, you get to choose when you want to work. I think that's
Yep.
probably a very common one.
Yep.
As I start to think about when I have my family, and just even with my family now, like I'm able to fly down to LA to go to a wedding. I don't have to call off for work. I just go. If it's, in the future, if it's sons or daughters practice, I can take them to that.
Yep.
Um, then the worst thing probably is Well, I guess it's a lot of stress, but I mean, at the end of the day, like it's worth it. You have to take on a certain amount of a stress for a certain amount of reward. So I do definitely like that. Well, do I like it? I don't know. That it's intense
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, it can be for sure.
Yeah, it's a constant battle of like working hard on critiquing yourself to get better and become more efficient and improve, but at the same time like you're breaking yourself down to do that. So it's like a double-edged sword, being tough on yourself, but then also like trying to give yourself um, well, at least trying to think about yourself in more positive light sometimes. So that, yeah, the mental health part is definitely difficult.
Yeah, definitely key. Definitely key. I think a lot of the things that you talked about on this podcast is important, which just for people that want to get into entrepreneurship, like mental health is important to take care of. So just make sure that you do that because each and every day, like you said, it can kind of be stressful, even though you can kind of, map out your own schedule and stuff like that. It can be stressful at times. So just make sure that, you are putting the right processes in place for you to be able to take yourself out and then come back in when you're ready to. So I agree with all that, man. Um, so if someone wanted to create the next Asian flush, what would you tell them? Or Asian flush or whatever, like stay the fucking side or just wanted to create something similar to what you're doing, what would you tell
Good luck. We're gonna dominate you.
them?
I'm kidding. Um, in what sense? So we want to create a card game in.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's really just like anybody that wants to be able to try to do something on their own or just kind of be an entrepreneur. What would you tell
I would learn the ins and outs of social media as quickly as you can.
100%.
The future is switching to direct to consumer. And the pandemic is accelerating that.
100%.
I think J.C. Penney's just went bankrupt.
A lot of places.
Barney's bankrupt, which is like a luxury store too. It's not like
Yeah.
there's some nice stuff in there.
Yep.
Barney's went bankrupt. Um, and I think you're going to start to see a lot of these sort of retail stores get swallowed up by Amazon.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the amount of data out there is crazy.
Outrageous.
Um, Facebook is in such a dominant position with how much time people spend on it. And so I think part one is having a great idea, but part two is figuring out how to get that idea to people. So if you understand social media and how that influences people, literally at a global scale, then you'll be in a great position to launch whatever you want.
Agreed, 100%. I think that, I think what you just said there is 100% relevant to what's going on right now. So, yeah, couldn't agree more, man. I appreciate you being on. I love everything you're doing. I would definitely keep supporting you from afar. Where are you at, anyways? Like in the U.S. Are you out in Cali? Where are you at now?
I'm in Seattle,
Seattle. Okay,
Washington.
gotcha. She has got hit first about everything, but
We
okay.
did, yeah. We've
Yeah.
been on quarantine / social distancing for a long time. It's
Sheesh.
got
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. But cool, man. Yeah, I'll be rooting for you guys from afar, and hope to connect. In the future when we can all get out and travel some more. But
right on.
again, appreciate you being on. And we'll see you when we see you, man.
Thanks, Christian. I appreciate it.
Yep.